Hello, my dear friends. Welcome to my channel or welcome back. My name is Sarita. We are going to do a few pistachio candles. And by a few, I mean that I have 3. I actually have 4, but it's so bad. I'm not even going to bother giving it a full-time review, if you know what I mean. It's Tuscany. I have 4 pistachio candles. 2 are from Bath & Body Works. 1 is from Yankee Candle. So today we're going to do the 2 Bath & Body Works candles. And we're going to compare and contrast. And because, spoiler alert, one of them, i.e. pistachio milk and honey, is, I think it's a Sol de Janeiro dupe, I just pulled out, first of all, Yankee's Sol de Janeiro dupe, which just came out here in January, Capri Glow, to compare that. And then I started pulling all of my Sol de Janeiros to try to compare them. But then when I pulled this out from my cabinet, I realized that it's actually Chirosa 71, which is not the same one as the original Boom Boom Cream. So then I was like, well, do I have one of the original 62s? And I do have this. It's a shower gel, and I think it is, even though it says Brazilian Foreplay, which is indecent, I apologize. I think this is the bright yellow 62 scent. I just brought this for fun, this Coco Cabana, which doesn't have anything to do with any of these. And then I do have Bath & Body Works Body Care dupe, which came out last year, which is Vacation Vibe. And I brought Trader Joe's dupe as well. So I haven't actually smelled or compared or contrasted any of these. I just grabbed everything. So this will be a little bit of a spontaneous video. Let's talk. Basically, these fragrances are all competing with each other for the same fragrance. So I guess let's talk about what the nuances are, etc., etc. So the 2 pistachio candles here from Bath & Body Works are this one right here, pistachio toasted vanilla. This one it's a couple years old. So not super old for them, but this was the second iteration or the second pour. The very first pour, I actually didn't end up buying, although I was kind of interested in it. But then by the time that I went to go get it, it was gone and I couldn't get it anymore. So I wanted to make sure that I got it the second time. So I got it in this iteration. And I do want to make that distinction because I was not impressed with the way that this performed. And I have heard reports that this second iteration of it was not as strong and did not perform as well as the first iteration. So I want that disclaimer right out in the open. It is quite possible that this fragrance performed better in its first pour, but I don't have that pour, unfortunately. I have this one. And then this one is a brand new one for this year, pistachio milk and honey. And if you don't know, pistachio is a very trending fragrance right now for a whole host of reasons. One of them does have to do with the runaway success of Sol de Janeiro. So the original Sol de Janeiro Brazilian fragrance, which became kind of I don't really know when this was developed, but I would say that in the last 10 years, it's become the it fragrance. They used to only sell exclusively at Sephora and then, of course, on their own website. Now you can get them some other places. Yeah. So, and you can get them off Amazon as well. The original fragrance for Sol de Janeiro is it's their Boom Boom Cream. So it's this big, primary color yellow jar or tub with a big white lid. And it's basically a body butter that women would use or do use in Brazil, etc., in America, to lather themselves up with all this moisturizer, which, if you don't know, makes your tan, actually any tan, even a self-tan, it will make it last longer. But especially an actual suntan will, if your skin is moisturized, it definitely holds the tan longer. And also if you put it on before you get in the sun, it'll like roast you even more. I worship the sun personally, and I'm not a sunscreen girl. And because I have like I have an olive complexion. I mean, right now my skin is terrible. I mean, it's like pasty and white. Oh my gosh, my sister and I were talking about this yesterday. We don't like do artificial tan, like we don't do tanning beds that often, but I'll tell you what, February to March is like when the skin is just as bad as it can be. I mean, you look at yourself in the mirror and you're just like, no. It's from finally the entire winter of like not enough vitamin D, not enough sun, like it all catches up to you end of February, early March, and you're just like, I'm a pale shadow. It's not even pale. It's like your skin is just so sad. So we usually end up going like $5 at LA Tan. Like we usually go like once in March. Our birthdays are in March. And so like we will go and just try to get something, to get us through to April, May, etc. Anyway, close parentheses. What on earth was I talking about? I was talking about tanning. I was talking about skin being pale, etc. I've completely lost the strand, so I apologize. I obviously haven't had enough coffee this morning. I'm like stumbling over my words. At any rate, this Charosa, the Boom Boom Cream, we were talking about that. It just became a huge like it fragrance over the last 10 years. And this Boom Boom Cream 62, they have like a body splash of it. Now they even have a perfume of it, etc. And then it became so popular that they were like, we'll do other flankers, other fragrances. So now they have 71, which I also have. And they have this one, Coco Cabana. I think this one is 40, but I could be wrong. And then they've developed other ones now that are like 39 and 60 and whatever else. I don't really know. All the different ones. There's like a fruity one now. There's several fruity ones. In my opinion, they're not that great. I really got into the 62 one because I'm a bronzy beach girl. I love beach fragrances, so long as they're not too mineral sunscreeny. So I was immediately attracted to it. I love the coconuts. I love the nerolies. I love the orange blossoms. I definitely love nuttiness. And this is where we're at here. This is the tie-in. So the Charosa 62 fragrance has pistachio in it. And 71, which is actually similar to it, has macadamia nut in it. So you want to hold on to that because that's part of the pistachio trending moment here over the last 10 years, but especially frankly over the last 5, is in part due to the runaway success, the nuttiness of the two fragrances, 71 and 62 respectively, from Sol de Janeiro. So that's partly it. And by the way, it's been duped now by Trader Joe's, by like everybody who has any kind of hand in developing fragrances or bath products, etc. And we are also in the land of dupes right now, in cosmetics, in fragrance, in body care, etc., etc. Like nobody is actually, not nobody, I guess that's an exaggeration, but very few companies are innovating themselves. And I feel kind of a certain kind of way about that. They're just duping each other. Baccarat Rouge is another one that's been duped. And frankly, the Baccarat Rouge fragrance is similar to these. It doesn't have a nutty note in it, but it's kind of the same fragrance profile. It's caramel, it's musky, it's vaguely bronzy, etc. So that's part of why you're seeing a lot of pistachio things across the board. The other reason why pistachio is trending is because of Starbucks, actually. And I've mentioned this before, but Starbucks came out with a pistachio latte. Gosh, I want to say it was 5 years ago, maybe 6, something like that, 6 years ago. And it was just a limited edition thing that they did in January. And my stepmother, she's a regional manager for Starbucks. She told me about it and I was so excited because she knows I'm like a huge pistachio girl. I just love it. I even like the really artificial electric green, like Jello pistachio. Like I am there for it. All the varieties of pistachio I love all the way. Spumoni, oh my God, Spumoni ice cream. And I'm Italian American, so like oh, a good Spumoni ice cream with the pistachio and the maraschino cherries, and I'm like salivating. All right. Anyway, she knew that I love the pistachio. So when that latte came out, I was like, yes, please let this be great. And it was great. And I thought it was just going to be a one-time thing. And I was telling my friends, I'm like, buy the pistachio latte. Because if it doesn't work and it didn't sell that well, it won't be back next year. But it sold so well in that first year that it not only came back the next year in January, but frankly, Starbucks just kept adding formats. A pistachio frappuccino, a pistachio cold brew. So good, by the way. Oh my gosh. Anyway, so now it's become like a tradition. I mean, it's been a strong 5 or 6 years at Starbucks now, January to March. It's still available, by the way. I got one the other day. It's still available in your Starbucks. It is pistachio season at Starbucks, and it's been a runaway popular flavor for them. So I don't think that they're going to stop anytime soon. And because of Starbucks' success with pistachio over the last 5 or 6 years, that's another reason why it is a super trending fragrance note, even in like home fragrance, etc. I'm sorry, that was a really huge windup. I really just should have said much more succinctly at the top of the video. The reason you're seeing pistachio candles now multiply at various different companies is number one, because of Sol de Janeiro, and number two, because of Starbucks. So that goes to tell you, and actually this is very apropos because this toasted pistachio or pistachio toasted vanilla candle, which was the first one that Bath & Body Works did, is very similar to the Starbucks latte. And the second one that they did, pistachio milk and honey, is basically a dupe of Sol de Janeiro. And as I mentioned at the top of the video, Yankee Candle has a brand new Sol de Janeiro dupe also this year, also coming out in January, called Capri Glow. So those are the two things that are being mimicked right now. Also, it's sitting off camera here. Yankee Candle, in the very same collection, did not only Capri Glow, which is Sol de Janeiro, but they have Pistachio Latte, which is, again, a dupe of Starbucks. So all of this is reinforcing and reiterating what I mentioned at the beginning, which is that the reason that we're seeing these candles is because of Starbucks and because of Sol de Janeiro. So you're going to get those two profiles right now in home fragrance. You're going to get a super deep, roasty, toasty, gourmandy pistachio that's similar to like a pistachio latte that you would get from Starbucks. And you're also going to see a much more perfumed and floral, personal fragrance, perfumey pistachio that is going to be duping Sol de Janeiro, which is the other like really big trending pistachio note. All right, so preamble over with that. Let's talk about pistachio and toasted vanilla, which is the Starbucks dupe, basically. So this one came out, like I said, a couple of years ago, and it was very well received the very first time. I smelled it in store at one point, and even I liked it. And I'm not a huge gourmand person, so I was disappointed when I missed out on it the first time. I did get it the second time here. So this is actually last year's pour. I'm kind of surprised that they didn't give us another pistachio and toasted vanilla this year, either in the holiday collection or in the January collection. And in January, they did give us this pistachio milk and honey, but I am surprised that they haven't recently given us this, when obviously, a la Yankee, a la Starbucks, this latte pistachio note is still very, very popular. And this candle did pretty well and has done pretty well at Bath & Body Works over the last 2 years. So the notes on pistachio toasted vanilla is salted pistachios, toasted vanilla almonds, and that's it. So usually there's 3 notes. They're only giving us 2 here, pistachios and vanilla almonds. Well, I guess 3 if you count the vanilla as a fragrance note. So vanilla, almonds, pistachio. It's on paper, it's gonna be super nutty because it's not only pistachio, but almond, which is a very similar fragrance note. It's a really nice fragrance and it is very nut forward. And what I appreciate about this is that they haven't just duplicated their roasted peanut note, which is actually a roasted sesame oil. So there's the very famous, what is it? It's not pumpkin nut butter. Pumpkin nut butter was new this year. It's not pumpkin nut butter, which is actually somewhere between pumpkin nut brittle and this toasted pistachio toasted vanilla, because that pumpkin nut butter actually had a very strong almond note rather than a peanut note, but it also did kind of have like a roasted note too. It was like roasted, but really just almond, almost almond extract, almond amaretto. The really big peanut candle for Bath & Body Works is it's pumpkin peanut brittle. Is it toasted pumpkin? No, I think it's just pumpkin peanut brittle. Okay. Pumpkin peanut brittle was developed many, many, many years ago by, I think, a lady who has revealed to us, and Kent has the whole story on this, revealed to us that the oil that she actually uses is not peanut, it's sesame. But the sesame smells like roasted peanuts once it's burned and it's in the candle, right? So what I appreciate about this pistachio toasted vanilla is they didn't just try to pass off or pawn off on us like their sesame thing and be like, yeah, it's pistachio, like gaslighting us into thinking that it's pistachio or almond when it's actually sesame/peanut. I appreciate that because Bath & Body Works does play that game a lot. And frankly, most of their consumers are not quite as sophisticated and serious about our fragrance as we are. So they can get away with that kind of thing. They didn't do that with this. I mean, this is a true pistachio nut. It really is. And yes, it is also almond as well, but it's got the almond note and then it just kind of grows into that amazing green sweetness and savoriness of a pistachio. It's a fantastic pistachio forward candle that allows almond to kind of amplify it a little bit. And then there is something on the bottom that is not only vanilla, but frankly is a little bit shea butter. We'll call it shea butter. And if you're familiar with shea butter or cocoa butter, it does have a significant like kind of creamy, sweet body care component to it. So this candle is not through and through gourmand. It's mostly gourmand. I would say that it's probably about 80%, 70 or 80% gourmand, just toasted nut and vanilla. But then there's this aspect of it that's just turns a little tiny bit body care. I think it's beautiful. It's still a beautiful fragrance. I'm not it doesn't ruin it for me that it's not like a through and through gourmand. It just doesn't. But I'm also not a huge gourmand person. So I suspect that there might be some gourmand people out there, the real purists who really just want a through and through gourmand. If you can't put it in your mouth, like, I'm not going to burn it. You know what I mean? If you're one of those people, you might be a little bit disappointed or perhaps even low-key offended by this fragrance because of the inclusion of something that's not quite gourmand, but it's really very beautifully done. And like I said, 70 or 80% forward with a really authentic toasted pistachio nut and a really nice fullness of vanilla and almond as well to kind of round it out. So it's really a beautiful fragrance. It's simple, it's basic, but I think it's very effective. It's really lovely. This one burned relatively well, moderately sooty, but not bad necessarily. It did start burning fairly low, you know, like the bottom third of the candle, but I can't say that the strength and throw was necessarily worse than it was before. And unfortunately, I really only had 2 or 3 burns that I was happy with. That like in the back bedroom, I could get up to like a 6.5 or a 7, like maybe 1 or 2. The rest of the burns were very much in the 5 region or lower. Like this was a candle that I finally had to bring into the guest bathroom. So unfortunately, it didn't do very well for me. And as much as I love the fragrance, I just wanted it, number one, to be a bit more consistent, and number two, be consistently louder than it actually was. That said, the reports are on it are that this particular iteration, which people said it looked like fish scales, I didn't think fish scales so much as just this kind of like really nice neutral, like hammered like look. And I think the hammered look is what they were looking for. They released this in a holiday season, so it does have a little like snowflake up there. I liked it personally because I like a more neutral design. Maybe it was supposed to be like a metal pine cone too, a little bit holographic. It's a fine package. It was fine. Although when people started calling it fish scales, I think that was probably not the right vibe for this particular fragrance, but God bless. Yeah, unfortunately, it was not a great pour. And nobody seemed to have gotten really good volume out of it. So that's unfortunate. And maybe that's why it wasn't released this year. Maybe they're still working on it. And, you know, given the wax formulas shifting, I think, at least that's my conjecture at Bath & Body Works, that we're seeing wax formulas being redeveloped a little bit more soy, a little bit less paraffin, trying to make them a little less sooty in that process. As I know I beat this drum a lot. When you increase the amount of soy, you are not only going to mess with the consistency of strength and throw, you are also going to slightly mess with the fragrance itself. So if Bath & Body Works is in fact tweaking some of their wax formulas, it could be a reason why some of their pours are less strong than they were before and also may shift a little bit as well. And I wonder if part of the reason we haven't seen pistachio and toasted vanilla this year is because they're kind of working on it and they're not completely confident with it. So instead of pistachio toasted vanilla this year, they gave us a new one in the neutrals line, pistachio milk and honey. So I really like this kind of seersucker label that they put on it. I think it's really cute and still keeps it in that really neutral place. I don't mind the color, but I do think the color should have been a lot nicer and should have been like you could still keep it very olive toned, but still it should have been like some sort of really gorgeous light green, I think. I think that would have been really beautiful, especially since they didn't have pistachio toasted vanilla on the floor. I really think this should have been a green color, like a really soft, sophisticated green color, a muted one, kind of the way that like pink lavender Nespresso looks a little bit. You know what I mean? It's an okay color, but it's a pretty ugly yellow. It's got this weird yellow tint to it that just isn't great up against the lid. Minor issues. Also, another thing I've noticed, do you notice these labels, how they're off center and they're like down low on the candle? Now, we've noticed this with the Disney Princess collection, and I think Kent had a very reasonable conjecture, which is that the label was down so low because there may have been an original intention to create one of those like fancy lids that kind of comes down, and therefore they wanted to bring the label down as well. It does seem very, very plausible that that is the case as to the location of the labels on the Princess candles. But I'm noticing it on their regular candles too. Like the neutral ones never have anything other than this very like muted kind of lid. There's no reason for that label to not be centered. And I've noticed that a lot of them are not centered. So either they're just phoning it in and doing like a shitty quality job, or I just don't know what the intention is now. And it's not just the neutrals candles. There are other candles on the floor too, where like the label is just shifted down and I don't get it. There's so many of them that it makes me think it is intentional, but I don't know what the intent is. All right, close parentheses on appearance. This is the new pistachio candle for this year, introduced into the neutrals line, which is fine. And the notes on it are allegedly toasted pistachio, cozy shea butter. See, they even shouted out shea butter there. Cozy shea butter, whipped vanilla musk. And the reason that they're reiterating, or they're at least, I think there's probably some shea butter in this first one, but this one has a great deal more. It's a much more body care fragrance. That said, it still has the nutty element to it. It's just the entire thing is more body care than this one is. Yeah? Yeah. Less sweet in the nut itself. This one is a little bit more generic nutty rather than pistachio nutty. Not that it's not discernible as pistachio. I do think there is a pistachio note in here, but this is much more generic nutty as opposed to this first one here, pistachio toasted vanilla, which is very obviously pistachio, and the nut itself is sweet rather than all the other things. I mean, there is the vanilla and there is the shea butter, but you get that amazing nutty sweetness in a more authentic way in the toasted vanilla, whereas this one just has a kind of a generic nuttiness, and then there's a lot of sweetness coming from the other things, which are the shea butter, which are the vanilla, which are like kind of a caramelized dimension of both shea and vanilla, etc. So this one is pretty similar to something in the Sol de Janeiro line. By the way, this didn't burn all that well. And yes, this was probably like, actually, I don't think that this was a lighting issue. I really think the flame just went up in it, but look how messy that is. Ugh, did not burn well. I mean, this one was like moderate soot, but it was handleable. This one was not at all. Like, that is way too dirty, right? So that's the first thing. When I'm smelling it, I am getting the fragrance, but I'm getting a lot of carbon residue here, and I'm getting a lot of soot at this point competing with that fragrance. The performance on this candle was not good. It was even worse in terms of strength and throw to pistachio toasted vanilla, and because of that, couldn't stand up to the kind of sooting that it was also putting off, if that makes sense. So in that sense, just not as successful across the board. But talking about just the fragrance, yeah, very similar to this 71 actually. So 71 is actually very similar to the original 62. This is the one, by the way, with the caramelized vanilla and macadamia. I actually kind of like 71 almost as much as 62. And 71 is actually far more sweet and gourmandy than 62. 62 has a brighter and higher and a little bit more floral component to it. Whereas 71 is deeper, bassier, muskier, and very caramelized, and is allegedly macadamia rather than pistachio. In both the Sol de Janeiro fragrances, though, it is nutty nuance, but neither one of them have the toasty nuttiness of either of these Bath & Body Works candles, which makes sense. I mean, if it's a perfume or it's a body splash or it's a lotion, you don't necessarily want to smell like roasted nut. You want it to be like mostly body care with a nuttiness. You don't want to like smell like toasted nuts, just straight up, like a Nutter Butter or something like that. But I do think that 71, that this pistachio milk and honey is a little bit closer to 71 than to 62, because there isn't really any obvious floral component to this fragrance, which puts it more solidly in the 62 range rather than this one here, the 60 or 71. 62, which is the original Sol de Janeiro. I could be wrong, but I think it has a little bit of neroli in it. Oh, maybe not. I don't know. 6 or half dozen, I swear to God. That's part of the reason why I'm a little played out on Sol de Janeiro. It's just a cash grab at this point. And I just feel like the fragrances are good, but they're not that good. They're not quite as good as the hype would indicate. I'm over it. I'm played out. And now with all of the dupes, like, I can't even deal with this. Let's see here with Trader Joe's, which is actually pretty close. Yeah. Yeah, this one is not, this Bath and Body Works Milk and Honey is nuttier and basier than, again, not better. So again, this reiterates what I said. I think that this this Pistachio Milk and Honey is a Sol de Janeiro dupe, but it leans closer to 71, which is not the original fragrance, but it's similar with the macadamia. And here's Bath and Body Works's dupe. This was just a body care dupe. Yeah, again, less nuttiness in this. I think this one is closer to 62, this Vacation Vibe. This is closer to 60, yeah. And it's like more obviously pistachio than just like almond or macadamia nut. So I apologize if this is a super confusing video because I know there's a lot of things here. But at any rate, so I guess final answer, what I'm gonna say is Pistachio Milk and Honey is nuttier than all of the personal fragrances from Sol de Janeiro, at least on cold. I do have to say that upon being burned, some of the nuttiness went away. The shea butter came out to play, probably some amber, etc. So I do think that upon it being burned, it went a little bit more body care than like when you're smelling it here. And that goes for this first one as well. Although, because this one is about 80% toasted pistachio and like 20% body care, even with an increase of body care to like 30%, even 40%, still an enormous amount of gourmand nuttiness. Whereas because this one was less nuttiness, when the body care took over upon it being burned, it really did make it much closer to like a legitimate Sol de Janeiro kind of fragrance. And I do think it's closer to 71 than to 62 if you're like a Sol de Janeiro person. If you're not, like it's close enough. Yankee Candle is actually much closer. This is a much closer dupe of Sol de Janeiro than even the Milk and Honey from Bath and Body Works. This is impressive. Yeah. This is actually closer. So these two are very similar here. Capri Glow by Yankee Candle and Vacation Vibe, Bath and Body Works. Look, they're the same color too. Must be Freudian, you know what I mean? Like, I'm sure they're not collaborating. I'm sure they're not. But yeah, these two are actually fairly close to 62. Cheirosa 62. Capri Glow is almost spot on, frankly, for Sol de Janeiro 62, which is the original, like, super bright yellow Boom Boom Cream one. I mean, it's not exact, but it's awfully close. It's awfully close. Definitely closer than this is from Bath & Body Works. And I do think that Bath & Body Works' own Vacation Vibe is also fairly close to 62 as well. It does have a tiny back note of Bath & Body Works body care-ness, which is its own specific genre. It's not Sol de Janeiro, which I do think kind of inches it away from 62 a little bit, but for the most part is fairly close to 62. Capri Glow from Yankee Candle is fairly spot on. Fairly spot on. Like, if Sol de Janeiro themselves sold this as the candle form of 62, I would think that it was Sol de Janeiro's effort. I really would. Yeah. When it's in various different mediums, that fragrance is going to smell, I mean, it smells different, like, in the body, in the, like, cocoa butter, or, you know, in the Boom Boom Cream than it smells in the, you know, water perfume. It's just, when you switch mediums like that, it's going to have some slight variations. If Sol de Janeiro did this candle, I would totally believe it. Totally believe it. So I haven't, now, caveat, I have not burned the Yankee Candle. I don't know how it burns. I don't know how it performs. I don't know if the fragrance shifts once it's burned. I don't know any of that. I'm just saying that if you really want a dead-on Sol de Janeiro dupe, this candle right here is as close as anything I've seen from any of the companies. There was one, I think, at Kringle. I want to say that it was called sweet stuff, maybe something like that, but I never smelled that one. So I can't speak to Kringle's dupe, but yeah, this is a lot closer than Bath & Body Works' one. Anyway, close parentheses on that. Pistachio Milk and Honey did not perform, and look how filthy that is. Filthy. So no, I can't recommend this candle to you. I just really can't. Also, I don't think that the actual pistachio note is as pistachio-y as the one in Pistachio Toasted Vanilla. Also, this one, while it says honey in it, honey is not reiterated in the scent notes, and I'm not smelling anything that's particularly honeyed as opposed to like just golden or syrupy or carameled, if that makes sense. I do wish they've had several, like they had some sort of like milk and honey candle. Remember it had the neroli in it, I think, in the fall. And I was really excited about it because, and they had a honey line in their aromatherapy for a while too, right? Or their naturals or whatever they were calling it, right? But it wasn't really a true honey note, which I don't know. I haven't seen from Bath & Body Works a really good honey note. So whenever they put honey in it, it's really just this like generic syrupy caramel kind of thing. You know what I mean? If it was actually honey, that would add a different dimension to this candle, but unfortunately it's not there. So between the two, I do recommend pistachio and plus toasted vanilla, with the disclaimer that this candle did not perform very well. It just didn't. It wasn't terrible, but it wasn't the kind of performance that made me eager to run back out and repurchase it. We'll put it that way. But I do like the fragrance. I love my pistachios. It's got a toasty, roasty, shea kind of thing, which is great for January and February because it still has kind of a coziness about it, but it doesn't go like so obviously holiday. I mean, really, Starbucks has nailed it with bringing out that pistachio latte, January to March. It just seems like the best season for something which is still cozy and creamy and nutty and roasty, which just seems still a little bit cool weather, but also seems kind of like green and fresh and bright and just different. You know what I mean? So I think this is also a really good candle for January, February, March. So there you go. I want to see this again from Bath & Body Works, and I would love to see the next iteration perform better than this. So there you go. I can link Milk and Honey down below. I don't think this is available because I don't think it came out this year. So I'll try to link it if I can find it in some cached version on the internet or whatever, but I don't think you're going to be able to get it right now, which is fine. I just recommend it for posterity. I think this is a better candle across the board than Pistachio Milk and Honey, which is just kind of like a body care kind of thing that's, reminiscent of Sol de Janeiro. But I've stopped giving big points to these companies for duping some other company. Like, I didn't even give big points to Yankee Candle for this. And this is by far the best Sol de Janeiro dupe I've smelled in candle version. So at least there's that distinction. But like, of all the candles that they gave us new in that Italian collection, I put this on the bottom of the list. And the main reason was, I'm sorry, it's a dupe of something that's already existing. Like, great job at really nailing it and getting it extremely close, but exactly how many points can you give a company for just mimicking somebody else? I'm over it. Okay, you probably didn't need that rant. Anyway, those are the two pistachios from Bath & Body Works. Stay tuned this week. I am going to do Pistachio Latte from Yankee Candle. Spoiler alert, it performed at least as good, if not better, than the Bath & Body Works Toasted Vanilla. So I really highly recommend, spoiler, I really highly recommend toasted or Pistachio Latte from Yankee. And because Bath & Body Works didn't give us the toasted vanilla pistachio this year, really, you can get it from Yankee. You can get it from Yankee. So go out and buy Starbucks. Starbucks has the lattes still in the store. And if you, right here in March, want one of those amazing toasted pistachio lattes in your house, check out Yankee Candle. They have a fantastic one right now. I will talk about it in a few days. Thank you so much for joining me, my friends, and I'll catch you in the next one.